Good morning and welcome, Mr. Parekh. And thank you for joining us for what I'm sure will be a very engaging discussion because you are at the forefront of this whole navigation of, VUCA world through digital technology. And we will get to hear from you, hopefully, on all the details which you as, the person who's driving Infosys into the new world, this uncertain new world, is going to what you think of the road ahead. So I'll dive right in. First things first, Mr. Parekh, what exactly do you think is the manner in which tech has rescued the world during COVID, and we all know how in many, many ways, including our personal lives, including the way we work and everything. How do you think, it will now empower enterprises to navigate this uncertain new world?
First, thanks for having me here, and wonderful to be here at this session. I think technology has really been a critical driver in what has changed. We've all seen that in the past couple of years. As we look ahead, what we see, whether it's large enterprises or it's government departments, there's a tremendous need to leverage digital technologies, cloud technologies, data, analytics, artificial intelligence, to essentially drive speed with which things are being driven today, to drive predictability, and technology allows for that in this uncertain world, and to make sure that decision-making is more robust. So while there is no exact way of making decisions, but a lot of these technologies, especially related to data and artificial intelligence, allow for that. And we've seen with large enterprises, there's a better way for them to connect with customers. There's a better way for them to engage with their supply chains. There's a better way for them to connect with their employees. And the same with government departments. There's a much more efficient way that government departments are connecting with citizens. And this is really the leverage of technology that we are seeing today. While not everything can be stabilized, as you mentioned, in the new world of volatility and unpredictability, but a lot of these technologies allow us to reduce some of that volatility, to manage through some of those bumps.
As we sort of enter this post-pandemic, in a sense, post-pandemic world of uncertainty, do you think companies in India in particular are more and more getting prepared for this, or do you think they're still underprepared and what more needs to be done?
In fact, in India, my sense is that companies are moving at a breakneck speed. They're moving very fast all around the world. But in India, we have seen the leverage of technologies, even through government, is much more dynamic. And large enterprises are also following it. If you see what's going on in e-commerce, what's going on even on social media companies here, what's going on in actual transactions, whether you look at UPI or other platforms that have been built, whether you look at the India stack, there's ready leverage of those technologies that we all see in our daily lives, and it's much easier used and it's much less biased to any specific platform. It's much more open in that sense. And so the companies in India, the government agencies and departments in India are much more leveraging technology than we see with any country of this size and economy.
You've been working closely with the government as well. What are the things you think the government is sort of looking at in particular, and what are the key learnings for you as an organization which is working so closely with the government?
So there, what we've seen is there is a clear vision that the government has and many of the departments have on what they want to do with enabling citizens with greater access and use of technology, and a simplified way to engage, a more transparent way to look at information. For example, in some of the programs that we've seen, we've put in place artificial intelligence technologies, we put in place machine learning and data predictability technologies, which we believe have helped the government in increasing some of the receipts that they've had with respect to tax. And this has made a huge difference because these platforms make it easier for government to see the overall structure and make changes as is appropriate.
And as an organization yourself, as a private sector organization, sort of how government and private sector will work going forward?
I think here the way we've seen it work is if companies are able to support the vision, the digital vision of the government, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. We're seeing this in different departments. We've had a clear focus in one or two areas where we have a real depth, but there is opportunity across all governments, and we are also starting to see many states now jump into this.
Now, as a leading technology company, one of the biggest in India and the leader in the world as well, how do you think technology has adapted itself to VUCA? I mean, that's the critical element which we need to understand, how technology itself is adapting to this uncertainty.
So there, what we see is there are ways that technology is allowing its own adaptation because of the uncertainty. Take an example of what we see on e-commerce. Today, the ability for e-commerce to help us as individual consumers to make more intelligent decisions, to guide us into choices, to self-select some patterns, while sometimes it may appear intrusive, is a huge leap forward for technology for the right reasons. When guided properly, these sorts of decision-making parameters are huge adaptations of technology which make ordinary life much simpler for consumers to use. Then we look at technology which is adapted in a large country like ours to allow distribution of goods, distribution of other means of equity. That has made it very easy for a large population like ours to benefit from it. Then you look at technology which has helped banks, again, the banking sector, both in India and worldwide, to create much better ways of linking up with the consumers all around. We've seen some changes in the way technology and especially bandwidth has expanded massively. That has allowed many activities which were taking hours and sometimes days to be completed in minutes and sometimes seconds, and which makes it easier for people to use this technology. So technology is adapting to make sure that we progress in this uncertain and volatile setup, and that makes it easier for all of us to leverage it.
Now, in our earlier conversations, Mr. Parekh, we spoke of how your company and other companies like yours are sort of looking at new verticals, new areas of growth, which will drive not just the companies, but also the whole digital, sort of journey of the country itself. What are these? Tell us a little more about each of these verticals and how they would be able to power the country and your company.
So there, as we had spoken earlier, one of the biggest change we see is the area of cloud. And there's tremendous growth worldwide in what companies, enterprises are doing with cloud. And technology businesses like ours are well positioned. We built something called Cobalt, which helps us in the cloud area. But in general, large technology companies are ready to support the cloud journey. Another area that we discussed briefly was what a lot of the new tech companies are doing. So new tech companies are growing at a tremendous pace. These are not just small startups, which of course are doing very well globally and in India, but also large technology companies which have changed the way the world works. And that is a growth area for something that we are looking at. And another area which is more specific to us in the technology business is the healthcare area. We see globally healthcare more and more leveraging technology, and that becomes a tremendous growth area for us and in support of the country.
You spoke of earlier, we'd spoken of AI, ML, and the other areas which are coming up. What are the key things which need to be done in terms of skilling? Because these are all linked to the whole area of skilling also. I mean, the government is working on some of those aspects as well. How do you think the skilling aspect will sort of come in as new technologies come in at us?
So there on skilling, I mean, we have a huge advantage in India. I think our education system is creating incredible large numbers of very well-trained individuals. Whether you look at the 4-year programs, which have close to 900,000 engineering STEM graduates, you look at 3-year programs, another large number of graduates that we have. And then, putting those individuals through a training program, for example, the sort of program we have at Mysore and many other companies across India have, that creates a ready, skilled individual in the technology area that can support the needs not just in India, but worldwide. We've also seen, for example, the usage of specific skilling on the new digital technologies. And we have online platforms that can help with that, whether it's on artificial intelligence, on machine learning. We've also started to build new skilling areas in areas such as the metaverse, in the quantum computing area. And we will see that availability of talent and skill is what is going to drive the world technology business.
Tell us a little more about what's going on in the metaverse. I mean, that's become a buzzword now for both companies as well as the technology players itself. What is specifically what is Infosys doing on the metaverse?
On Metaverse, first, we've launched something called the Metaverse Foundry, which has many of our early capabilities built in and ready to use for large enterprises. Metaverse really relates to what is possible in the virtual reality world and how individuals and enterprises can create scenarios within that virtual reality, within augmented reality to help them. We have some very practical examples where we're working with manufacturing companies to allow them to do training, to allow them to navigate safety inspections, to allow them to, for example, make repairs on shop floor without taking some of the risks that come with being on the shop floor. So there are simple examples that we've already put in place, but there are a huge set of exciting areas where the metaverse is proving to be very
also
useful.
Healthcare, I believe. Healthcare also.
Similarly on healthcare, where you can look at training skilled professionals on how they can improve their skill in a specific micro healthcare device, or looking at healthcare by remote delivery sometimes using the metaverse. So there are a lot of examples. It's early days in terms of adoption, but we're already starting to see some adoption in manufacturing and healthcare.
And do you think that's going to sort of change the way people work and sort of interact going forward? And what's the time frame you see broadly, if you were to look at a crystal ball in terms of how the metaverse will change the game?
So there, I think it's very early in terms of what the metaverse is driving. And from our perspective, we are well positioned at Infosys to support it. My own sense is the next 5 or 10 years are going to be a massive opportunity set for the metaverse, and everything that we do will enable us to be better and better positioned. The real value is going to come where more and more enterprises and governments start to use it, and we'll have to see how individuals adapt to becoming part of the metaverse by themselves becoming inside it and using it.
We've spoken of large companies, how technology is changing large companies and helping them navigate this uncertain world. But there, in India in particular, there's a large number of MSMEs, the smaller companies who not only are unable to look at technology, they can't even afford it, they don't know how to use it, and they don't have the access or wherewithal, and that's really, and they're now hit by this wave of uncertainties, this whole cocktail of problems which has hit the country and the world. How do you see MSMEs leveraging technology in the way forward?
So there, what we see is the medium and small enterprises are benefiting from leveraging platforms. So they don't individually leverage technologies, but there are large platforms. For example, there's a platform on learning, something that we've built within the company that is used across India and across the world for skilling employees on new digital skills. This is something we made available outside of Infosys as well. those are the platforms that many medium and small enterprises can easily become part of and use on a per usage basis, and that gives them access. Today we see a lot of other platforms being developed, whether they are platforms for supporting the sales process, supporting the human resources process, and those will be the way that these smaller businesses can leverage technology and leverage the most leading technology.
So you're saying it need not be per company driven or per firm driven, but more a platform driven approach for the smaller firms.
And a platform driven approach where they can benefit from the leading technologies and get some level of customization for them, but for the most part use these large platforms.
Is that proving to be a growth area for companies like you?
We have ourselves not focused on small enterprises at this stage. Our focus remains on global large enterprises. But over time, as we build platforms, for example, we built a very successful platform for banking, Finacle, which was started 20 years ago. That platform is extremely successful. It's not just for small banks, it's for banks of all sizes. But that's a platform that we will scale and build. We've built another platform on insurance where we'll see some of that growth. We've got a platform on mortgages and a platform on e-commerce. So we have very few selected platforms that will see some scaling.
Mr. Parekh, you spoke earlier of this whole cloud, the cloud being one of the major enablers in the current environment. Now, alongside that comes the fear of cybersecurity. There's a whole discussion going around of how digital, this whole digital journey will face the biggest threat. In fact, surveys have shown that CEOs are really worried now about one of the biggest threats in the new world is of cyber threats, right? So what is a company like yours, how do you see that playing out?
So cyber is an extremely critical area for all large enterprises, government departments. We've built a very strong capability in cyber where we built security operation centers or SOCs all around the world, ensuring that we are monitoring the threat matrix for our clients and addressing how that can be softened in the way the attacks are happening. The cloud actually provides a very strong way of integrating cybersecurity because there the technologies are as good as you can get in any other environment. Our own view is this has to be continuously monitored, the threat matrix through the SOCs, and make sure that we have ability to deal with it when there's infiltration. There are several actors around the world that have used cyber to gain an advantage, to gain some destabilization. These are well documented. We have a method of working to address some of those, but it's something that we have to be watchful of all the time.
In fact, it's become a tool of war as well in today's times. So do you think companies are getting better prepared as you talk to them?
There's a ever-increasing capability on protecting against cyber, and there's an ever-increasing capability that some actors are creating to disrupt. So it's an ongoing battle between those two. We need to make sure that we remain ever vigilant in that.
No discussion on VUCA and technology can be complete without a discussion on the future of work. Yeah, and Infosys has been an advocate of many changes in that front. Tell us a little more about how you see that playing out. How are companies, in your view, adapting to this changing whole work metric, changing remote working, and the entire gamut of things?
So there, one of the things we've noticed is it's been extremely important to build some level of flexibility as we look ahead and create the future of work. We see a lot of our employees starting to come back, and we see a lot of employees at our large clients starting to come back to work, but they're also seeking flexibility in how that is to be dealt with in the future. We are also seeing that there is some need that many of our employees are sensing and feeling on social capital and the need to connect as they build their careers, as they learn from each other through peer networks, and they learn through shared experience. And there's also the need, when there's more innovative work going on project teams, to work together in person. So we are creating special spaces where people can come together and work at specific times, not all through the week. We are creating special ways where the social capital can be rebuilt. We see clearly as we move ahead, the future of work is flexible, and it's something where people have the ability to do both remote and in-person as we go forward. As we look ahead, of course, there will be more and more work which will be done back in the office with greater flexibility.
But that itself will be a challenge to technology, isn't it? I mean, how do you have in the same team, for instance, you'll have some people working remotely, some people working in person. So how does technology, you think technology is able to adapt to that right now?
So today what we've learned over the last couple of years is the technologies really enable this remote working and where some people are remote and some people are in person. More and more new technologies are now coming in place where there's much easier connect, integrated teams which are remote and on in person are able to interact more well. Those sort of technologies are available and becoming more readily available for the future. My own sense is the flexibility will be more related to individuals. As teams start to work together, a lot of them will actually connect in person, with a few of them being remote.
Do you think that will have a bearing on the structure of the new age organization as technology sort of dominates the whole, the organization itself and it reworks itself? Do you think the organizational structure itself will change in some form going forward?
So they're difficult to predict. I think organizations have a way of evolving, but the evolution is typically dependent on what is being driven by the environment. There are various regulatory issues that we'll have to look at. And there are what clients are looking for. Clients are looking for extreme connect and also a great impact. And then finally, what are employees looking at? Today's employee that's starting from college is looking for tremendous level of flexibility, but also fast learning. So those sort of things will sort of filter in to the organization design.
You worked very closely with banks, and your Finacle is a major product in that space as well. Which are the sectors, Mr. Parekh, you think are really taking to technology and changing technology in the fastest way?
So there, I think banking and financial services always been the leader in tech, and they continue to remain that. But we see, for example, consumer products, retail going very fast, automotive moving extremely strongly today. Even sectors such as utilities, which are more usually in the government domain or semi-public sector, are moving at speed to leverage technology. So as we look around our business, there's no real industry that is not impacted with technology today.
So you're a winner of one of the awards on Best CEOs. What are the 3 or 4 things you have done, particularly over the last couple of years, which has sort of taken Infosys to this fantastic trajectory which we see right now?
So there, I think first, Infosys has had an extremely strong foundation which was built over the years with its very strong capability on training and on delivering to clients. So the trust that Infosys has with clients has been incredible. One of the things we've put in place over the last few years has been this push to digital, where many of our clients are looking to use digital solutions, and we've built those capabilities out. And the biggest real sort of impact we've had is we put in place something called One Infosys, which is a way of working where all of our different capabilities are brought together to support our clients. And that makes a difference, because to do large digital programs, clients need multiple capabilities. No one thing can make the difference. With all of our employees working together, that makes a huge difference as One Infosys.
And that again has a bearing on the HR element as well. So you've sort of been able to carry the entire team to that one vision.
So there, I think the focus within employees has always been on what is right for clients. We've further cemented it by making sure that every capability, every service that we have is geared towards what the clients are looking for.
So how are large technology companies now going to change their strategy, given the fact, and like I said at the beginning, is strategy dead? In fact, in the sense that is it only as good as a year or two? What are your thoughts on that?
So we've talked about this before. Our focus is on what's relevant for clients. And that changes literally every few months. There are some underlying themes which are important. For example, large enterprises want to connect more closely with their customers. But what are they doing to connect with them? How are they building their capabilities? That keeps changing. For example, we have a very big focus on automation that the companies had for many years. And automation is a key driver because it allows large enterprises to be more efficient with their cost spend. And when the economies are changing, automation becomes an even more important enabler. So to the extent we remain relevant to what clients are looking for, that becomes a strategic driver for us.
And that vision obviously comes from the top, and sort of all the line managers as well.
No, absolutely. So that's something that we've put in place as a sort of a coherent approach within the company. We've just rolled out a new strategic direction for the next several years, and that's part of it by being more relevant to clients and what they're driving for the change.
In this environment, I mean, and good you spoke about this right now in the context of your company, what are the three or four things global CEOs and CEOs in India need to really focus on in this VUCA world?
So what we see our large enterprise clients, CEOs talking about most is speed. Speed is something has become extremely important, and technologies become one of the key ways in which the large CEOs are driving to speed. The second is much more predictive in what they can think their customers are doing. So the more they're able to predict where their customers are going, the more they're able to build solutions for their customers. And the third, which is almost always prevalent and may become more relevant going ahead, is cost. And that becomes important in this new environment that we're starting to see here.
Mr. Parekh, thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. I look forward to having the rest of the evening also. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.